This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hey team, we have a new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, BitGet, one of the world's leading copy trading cryptocurrency exchanges. Yes, indeed. What happens if you've got the funds to invest, but you don't have the time to keep track of the market? You still want to make smart money moves. What do? Well, copy trading is a popular choice for beginner traders. You can shorten your learning curve by uncovering tips and strategies from more experienced traders. BitGet's copy trading platform has over 80,000 elite traders to choose from and 380,000 followers just like yourself who are already using the BitGet copy trading platform as a potential passive income stream. All it takes is one click. You can subscribe to an elite, profitable strategist, set your limits, automate your orders, and monitor their trades. But of course, copy trading isn't without some risks, so do make sure you learn all about that. To help you do that, I've got some links in the show notes below. One link will take you through to the BitGet sign up page, give you a VIP discount, and there's another link that'll take you to a YouTube video that explains some of the risks, and another link will take you through to a page on the BitGet website with all the ins and outs of copy trading. So learn all about it for yourself thanks to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is David Schwed. David is the COO at Halborn, which is an elite blockchain security solutions provider. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure. Excited to talk to you today, David. We'll do what we do at the beginning of the show, which is I will invite you to please introduce yourself. I can see you've got quite a fascinating background. So to begin with, it'd be great if you could share some of your background and personal story in the lead up to being involved with Halborn.
Sure, absolutely. So I like to, talk about my career in three different stages. So the early part of my career, I worked in traditional finance in various different type of roles, infrastructure, risk management, audit, and some proper information security roles. In 2008, I took a little bit of a fork in my career. I went to law school to get my law degree, but I also co-founded a telecommunications company, which I ran for about 10 years before we were acquired back in 2018. While I was running my telecommunications company, there was a particular client of ours, and the CIO of that particular client was a gentleman who was very into crypto, and we became very close. And he actually sold me my first Bitcoin, I think it was back around 2012. And I became fascinated with the technology, but again, on a personal level, I didn't really have any intention to, quit my company and, just run full-fledged into crypto at the time. It was more, admiring from afar from a personal level. And just through happenstance and timing, when I sold my company, I actually went out to lunch with this individual, and he was working for Galaxy Digital at the time, and it was right around the time that Galaxy was getting formed. It was right from the genesis of the Novo's family office into Galaxy Digital, and he was telling me they were looking for their first chief security officer to help stand up their information security program for this new entity, Galaxy Digital. So I just sold my company. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I loved the technology. From a personal level, I decided this is where I want to take my career. So I dove in head first and became the first chief security officer for Galaxy Digital. And, I never looked back from there. And, from there, I've had, some other exciting roles, such as global head of digital assets technology for BNY Mellon, and now over at Halborn as their chief operating officer.
Yeah, that's right. So some big names there, Galaxy Digital and BNY Mellon. So what prompted the move then to Halborn?
Good question. For me, listen, banking institutions have their need, and they are by design, organizations that don't necessarily move as fast as the market, right? They have to be by design risk averse, from a regulatory perspective, just from general risk management practices. And, me as an individual, someone who likes to build, likes to secure, likes to be part of, the new and emerging technologies, I just felt that I was better apt for an organization such as Halborn, where, if I have a great idea on a Monday, by Wednesday, we can be changing process and, either implementing a new type of technology or security, or pivoting and offering a new type of product. So for me, just on a personal level, I just felt that, the need for speed was only, available for a smaller organization.
Yeah, that makes sense, David, and I like that. You're not satisfied with working with the bigger, steadier as she goes type organizations. You want to keep your hands dirty, and I guess then it'd be good if you could describe for the listeners a little bit more about what Halborn is, perhaps the background, the origin story, the guys that founded it, and then we can kind of talk about the capabilities and services that you guys provide. But yeah, our origins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, there's a little bit of a funny story to the origin, which I'll get into in a minute, which I actually didn't find out until I joined Halborn, that I was actually part of the genesis without realizing I was part of the genesis of the organization.
Cool.
So Halborn was formed, Rob Behnke and Steve Walbroehl. Steve is a world-renowned hacker. I mean, he's probably one of the best that I've ever seen. He's authored many courses for SANS. Rob is one of the most amazing salespeople that I've ever seen. So he's what we call the growth hacker, and Steven's the actual hands-on security hacker. And Rob was very early on active in the crypto world. And he started to see, and not in the security space, more in like, the ICO stages, if we remember back then. And he started to notice that a lot of his clients were suffering through security events. And he felt there's an opportunity here. All of his clients are getting hacked, and there really wasn't anybody doing anything about it at the time. So, Rob, being who he was, an entrepreneur, started asking around, who could he be connected with that, is great in the security space. And Steve's name, kept popping up from his network. So he met up with Steve, and they went down to, I think it was Black Hat. It was, in Vegas at the time. I think this was 2018 or 2019. And they went to Black Hat, and right next door was World CryptoCon. And they decided to, let's go over to World CryptoCon. And they went over to a security conference, or a panel that was happening at the time. And it was the only security panel at the time. And they listened to the security panel, and there was a gentleman on there, and they approached that particular panelist afterwards, and it ended up turning to be one of their first large enterprise customers. And it was really from there, it was once they signed that customer and all these other customers and did a proof of concept that this is a need in the market, it just exploded from there. And the funny part of it was I was the moderator of that panel. And I had actually put that panel together and brought all the panelists with me. So, I always tell Rob and Steve, joking around, if I didn't put that panel together and bring those panelists down there, Halborn wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Can we understand some of the different services that Halborn provides then? So I guess Halborn is a blockchain security firm, really, still a reasonably, I don't know if it's a small team, about 100 people, various devs and security guys, I guess, based all around the world, I imagine, David. But yeah, just talk a little bit about the team, and then we can talk through the services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Halborn is structured in multiple different domains or disciplines. So we don't necessarily focus strictly on-chain security like a smart contract auditor. We like to look at a project holistically. So we also do off-chain security as well. So our goal is to secure end-to-end the entire Web3 organization or the Web3 project. If it's a larger organization that doesn't necessarily focus specifically on Web3. So, while some of our competitors will maybe be hyper focused on a smart contract audit, there are other aspects of vulnerabilities that could lead to either a disruption in the business or could lead to exfiltration of funds. Biggest example is, key management or, custody. So, it's not just necessary for an organization to get a smart contract audit. They might need to start looking at, well, what are we doing to secure our keys? And then if you take a step back, what does our DevOps process look like, or CI/CD, or what does our web front end look like? There's so many different components within a Web3 world that could potentially be exploited, that could lead to like I said, an exfiltration of funds and or disruption of service. So our mission in Halborn is really to look at the entire threat landscape that could potentially lead to one of those adverse events and secure it.
Yeah, got it. And I mean, Yeah, we can talk about this, I guess, but it feels like Web3. Obviously, it's an exciting new industry based on decentralized blockchain networks. But every day, if you spend any time on crypto Twitter, you can see various different exploits, hacks, people losing access or getting rugged of their assets in various different ways. It's just it's a crazy time in Web3, Dave.
It is, and I think it's a combination of two different things. I think it's a combination of, these are bare assets. Whoever holds the assets, you're holding the funds. It's not like the Web2 world where you break into an organization, you steal social security numbers, or you steal credit card numbers, or you steal protected health information. Now you have to go to the black market and try to sell them for pennies on the dollar. This is, you break in and you're breaking into a bank and you're stealing cash. I mean, it's really that simple. So what's happening is the threat actors or the bad guys are focusing now on Web3. So you have the best of the best in the bad guys that are now turning their attention here because it's more profitable for them. So it's a combination of elevation of the threat actors, in addition to, unfortunately, a lack of maturity and a lack of budget to secure the Web3 ecosystem. We're seeing a lot of projects getting nice size seed checks or Series A checks, but comparable to, say, a bank level security, there's definitely a huge gap there. So I think it's going to take either 12 or 24 months for the Web3 world to really mature to the point that we have the tools necessary, we have the budgets necessary, and we also have skill set necessary to stand up bank level security to the equivalent, whatever that equivalent is in the Web3 world.
Yeah, that's right. And I saw, I was just looking through the Halborn Twitter, David, and it was just last month. It's a behind a paywall, but there's an article on Fortune, actually, fortune.com. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but
Yes.
the tweet from Halborn Security at Halborn Security on Twitter. So it says Halborn discovered a massive 0-day impacting Dogecoin and 280 other blockchain networks, potentially putting over 25 billion of digital assets at risk. Maybe just talk us through, a little bit about, use this as a kind of a case study, if you like, David.
Absolutely. One of the greatest things about Web3 is the openness and the transparency, which means everything is open source. So everybody can look at the code. So what ends up happening is the bad guys are finding the vulnerabilities quicker because they have access to the source code. Now, because things are open source, there's tons and tons of building in the Web3 world, and a lot of building starts with a fork from an existing project. So what happened here was there was a vulnerability in, I forgot what was the originating project, and there was a fork. So everybody copied that vulnerability into their project, which resulted in these 280 forks of the original project that all had this one vulnerability in it. So it's unfortunate because you can find one vulnerability in one project and that vulnerability can get patched, but then the bad guys can say, okay, well, now we know what the vulnerability was. Let me go back and look at all the projects that were a fork prior to the, that vulnerability getting fixed and now try to exploit it. So that's what this case was, is that there was a discovery of a vulnerability in one chain. And then we did our own due diligence to say, well, listen, we know that, projects are forked from other projects. We want to alert all of the other projects as well. And then as we started diving deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, we discovered, whatever that number ended up being, over 280 potential projects that also contain this one vulnerability.
Yeah, right. Scary stuff, but good that has been patched. I think. Is it fair to say it's like it's that constant kind of battle or game of cat and mouse, push and pull between I don't know, the good guys and the bad guys, or the white hats and the black hats, as the technology evolves. It really is a game of cat and mouse, right?
100%. You cat and mouse. I use the term whack-a-mole. It's really you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what it is. As soon as we patch, you put your finger in one hole to kind of patch the water coming out. Another one pops up, and you just got to keep doing that. And it's it's part of the game, right? The bad guys are always trying to find that new vulnerability, that new way in, and we're always trying to find a way to keep them out. But you know what? It's on a personal level, it's an exciting field to be in because that's each day is not like the previous day.
That's right. So, who are some of the bigger teams or clients that Halborn is working with at the moment?
Admittedly, I don't recall off the top of my head which ones I'm allowed to disclose or not. But if anybody's listening and wants to go to our website, there's a nice little section that says who trusts us.
Yes.
So you can definitely take a look there. But I don't remember off the top of my head which ones we've given authorization to disclose or not disclose.
Well, I can see it says Solana, the logo from ApeCoin. So presumably,
the
Bored Ape Club, Bored Yacht Ape Club is there. Dapper Labs.
Yes.
Yep.
BlockFi I know is on there as well, and I'm just actually going to pull it up to see if there's any that are so I see here Avalanche. We can talk about BlockFi. Dapper Labs, like you mentioned, Elementus, Euler is on there. So we work with some of the largest, Web3, names in the business, Polygon, like you said, the Solana Foundation, Sushi Swap, Thorchain. There's tons. And there's also, tons obviously that more that we can talk about. It's funny. Some of the largest of our clients obviously are the ones that, we're restricted from discussing, some of the,
Yes.
largest banks in the world.
Right. So what were the ones that you can discuss then, the likes of Solana and perhaps the Bored Ape guys or Dapper Labs? What I'm sure every client is different, but is there like a kind of a typical relationship or protocol that you work through with these teams? How close is the relationship, and is that just kind of ongoing?
It's definitely an ongoing relationship. Our most fruitful relationships is where we provide what we call security advisor as a service. So it is this ongoing cyclical relationship with the client. So that way, number one, our engineers really get to know their engineering team. So it becomes like very symbiotic between the two organizations. And we find we work best that way, as opposed to a client coming in and saying, hey, can you do a quick smart contract audit, give us the report, and then we part ways. Our engineers develop really good, deep relationships with their engineers, and, they even become friends. And it's like, I watch the Slack channel, and, they're very close, and they, kind of talk back and forth and even make suggestions on, how they can, do some stuff better from a development perspective. But it really depends on the company. Like some companies are coming to us, specifically for, hey, we just want, every time we make a change to a smart contract audit, we need Halborn's, stamp of approval. So we'll have a relationship with them where, anytime there's a change to a repo or, repository of code, we'll work with them to kick off a new smart contract audit to validate the code. And then we work with some other organizations where, hey, they're not more concerned, but they're also concerned with like their web app front end because, they might have, for example, Badger, I believe, is one of the logos that are on there. They became a client, after they suffered that breach, which was through the web front end. So, we do, stuff for them as well. So it really depends on the client and what their needs are. But, again, we advise clients on here's all the things that we would recommend. Some clients take us up on it, and we'll take out the full security suite and have us do web front, mobile app pen testing, and risk assessments, and architectural and key management and custodial reviews. Some clients from, due to budgetary constraints, will only have us focus on certain parts of the chain. But, again, it really depends on, the client and how deep they want to have a relationship with Halborn. We'll go as deep as they want us to and do as much work for them as they'll allow us.
Have you ever had a potential client come to you, David, and you and the team take a look, and you just see so many, red flags or potential vulnerabilities or just dodginess, and you just take a look and think, yes, actually, we might walk away and not get involved with this one?
Yes. I don't remember the specifics, but there have been a few cases where we've, worked with clients where we've parted ways, after, developing that relationship with them where, listen, at the end of the day, our reputation is our reputation. And although we can do a smart contract audit or we can do an assessment, if we feel the organization is not taking security seriously, we will have that tough conversation with them and part ways and say, while it'll be great to invoice you and get a check, we don't feel that the relationship is fruitful for both sides because we don't feel that particular project may be taking security as seriously as they should. And then there's some other cases where, a client will reach out to us, and after a few conversations, it's your spidey sense. You just feel that this isn't a good project that maybe we necessarily want to be, necessarily associated with. Not necessarily that they're, bad people per se, but it just might end up turning into a potential, rug pull potentially, or the founders may end up, parting ways. So we definitely are very selective on who we work with. So there have been times when we have actually turned down work.
Yeah, got it. If we zoom out a little bit, David, obviously in 2021, there was a huge surge of interest and growth really across whatever you want to call the Web3 ecosystem, particularly with the bull market and NFTs, and of course the sudden surge of interest in metaverse type activities. Now, 2 years later, almost in 2023, it's a little bit of a different story. Obviously, we've had a bear market in crypto, but you can see that a lot of the metrics across Web3 are down. Everything from NFT trading to floor prices to new wallets to active wallets. Everything is down, and of course the kind of the global narrative, if you like, is very much moved on to AI. I'm sure you will have noticed. But just interested in your kind of thoughts on, where Web3 goes from here. What are your thoughts? What are the people that you guys work with thinking? What are they building? What are they expecting? I mean, it's kind of big picture stuff, but yeah, love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the AI thing, because I'm happy, right? Like I don't want to say like the non-true believers, right? Like I'm not a the libertarian type cryptocurrency person where like that's not my personal view on it. But the people that were really in it for like that quick cash grab or that quick let me make a quick buck, they've moved on, and I'm happy about that. The people that are really truly here, that believe in the technology, that believe that this is a disruptor, are here to stay, and they've never gone anywhere, and they're building. And I can tell you, the activity over the past, I'd say 3 or 4 months have been back to like the early days. Like we're seeing a lot of interest in a lot of builders and a lot of new projects. So I'm really, really excited about the future. And then even, in the TradFi world, there's a lot of quiet building going on. I think, given the current regulatory climate in the US, some of the banks and some of the larger financial institutions may not want to make public statements as to what they're doing or publicly enter the market, but they're not sitting around doing nothing. There's a lot of building going on. So I think, once the regulatory climate shakes out, and I think we have a clear path towards regulation, which I'm a huge advocate for, I think we'll start to see a huge onslaught of, products and services, coming from some of the larger financial institutions, which will obviously do, great things for the ecosystem. There'll be a huge capital infusion, and I just think it will add just, further validity into the market. So, overall, I'm just, generally bullish. And I think, again, with any new technology, you have to find what is that particular use case for it. I think, the NFTs were great, and people were like, this is the greatest thing in the world, and it's a JPEG. And then people were like, well, okay, now what? What do we do with this? And I think the interest kind of died off, and people started looking at other things. It's art, just like any piece of art. That's one use case of an NFT. It's a piece of art. You hold it and you can tell people you own it and you can show it to them. But now I think people are trying to evolve and say, well, what else can we do with it? And that's when the utility conversation comes in. I've been talking about for a while, and I think I'm starting to see now actual use cases, specifically in an area which I've been talking about is, airline tickets or concert tickets. We can talk about not just having the ticket as an NFT, like that's, a memorabilia, that's great, but like, what is the actual utility for it? And, one of the use cases I've talked about a while is let's create a secondary market for, airplane tickets. My boarding pass and my ticket is an NFT that's on the chain. I can't make my flight. I can go onto a secondary market and perhaps sell my ticket. And then because it's through a smart contract, the originating airline can receive secondary income now for the resale of that ticket. And it just opens up an entire market where now people who can't make flights can now resell their ticket potentially for more money and make money. The airlines are making additional revenue because now tickets are getting resold. And then people who maybe are shut out of a flight can now buy on the secondary market because they really need to get somewhere. So to me, that's like a perfect use case of how does the blockchain technology allow a new market to come about and, give back to the community and give like an additional, value add.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I mean, there are many exciting use cases that Web3 can unlock. I suppose, one of the stumbling blocks, though, David, is really, it's security, right? It's as simple as that. Just because the blockchains are amazing at giving people the ability to truly own their own digital assets. But, it's a little bit of a complex game. And as much as there are, some of the most advanced and well-capitalized teams out there have the resources to hire teams such as Halborn to kind of help them out with this stuff. But, for Web3 really to take off, we need just the average everyday user or consumer, if you like, to be able to participate. And for them, just the process of trying to navigate through various different MetaMask transactions can be overwhelming, and it's very easy for them to do something wrong, click on the wrong link in Discord, all that kind of stuff, and then just get wiped out. How can we address those kind of issues for the average Web3 user in the future, do you think?
So that's a great question. And I think it kind of touches on two different things. And, it's really, what are the barriers for retail? What are the barriers for the on-ramp for, my parents for entering into the crypto market, or, for non-technical users? Yes. And it's hard, right? It's incredibly hard. There's different layer ones and there's different tokens, and it's not easy. So I think, we need to solve two things. One is we need to instill trust, and one of that is by security. And then one is we need to think about the user experience. And I think there's a lot, I know there's a lot of stuff that's being built right now in the retail market to help address that. Specifically in the security world, there's a bunch of browser extensions that are being offered that will help, you from, preventing you from clicking that malicious link, for giving it a token approval, in MetaMask, right? Like those are things that were not available a year or two now, that there's probably now 15 or 20 of them that are out there. So I think as we start building for the retail market and we start getting them onboarded and getting them more comfortable and more familiar, it needs to look and feel as easy as PayPal or Venmo, where you just open up your app and you send something, boom. So there's a lot of work being done to make the onboarding and the offboarding into Web3 transparent to the end user, while also making it secure. So I think those are the projects that I'm particularly interested in, in the next 12 months, because I think those are the ones that are really going to help this, explode.
Yeah, and I think we need new. I believe there's a new ledger. I think it's called Ledger Stacks. Have you seen that? It's not. It's not out yet, but it's available for pre-order. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's listen, everybody's used to that iPhone with that GUI. So listen, the old Ledger, even from, it's a little bit annoying, hitting those two little buttons and kind of putting in your code and your PIN codes and all that stuff, and enable signing. If I had a nice little GUI, it's a lot easier to use. So I think enhancements like that, and there's a ton of wallet, consumer wallets that are being introduced that are offering enterprise level security to the consumer, which I think will also help instill that trust, and then also that usability and experience.
Yeah. And just bringing it back to AI, David, the fascinating thing about, I guess, platforms or models such as ChatGPT-4, I'm not a coder myself, but I've been struck by the incredible coding abilities that these AI models have. And I can see, again, this goes back to that kind of push and pull cat and mouse. So I guess AI will enable people to write much more efficient code for things like Web3, but probably potentially just gives the attackers that much more capabilities as well. If you kind of extrapolate forward, what do you think AI brings to this game?
So AI can be a very powerful tool, and it can also be a very dangerous tool. I think number one, we have to remember the bad guys have access to the same tools that we have. So, to your point, if we're just using ChatGPT to write code with us and just blindly taking it and using it, the bad guys can take that same code through ChatGPT and, find those vulnerabilities. So I think while ChatGPT and AI tools are great to assist and to help, I don't think it should be used as a full, transparent, end-to-end, coding solution. because a lot of the vulnerabilities that we see, from Halborn really come in two different ways. One is code vulnerability, which, those are the things that ChatGPT may or may not pick up. But then more importantly is like business logic flaws. ChatGPT may or may not pick up the business logic flaws because it doesn't necessarily know what your code is supposed to do or what it's interacting with. As you're interacting with an Oracle and the Oracle is getting updated before this is getting updated. So I think we need to be a little bit careful before we fully rely on AI. It's a great tool to use as like a supplement, but I think as developers and I think as security professionals, it should just be one feather in our cap or, one whatever in our arsenal that we should use. And we should not take total reliance on AI. Because again, AI only knows what's out there in the universe. It's not necessarily going to know things that weren't necessarily reported. Some of the greatest hacks in the world, we still don't know necessarily how they happened. So we're not necessarily going to be able to learn from it to get ingested into a ChatGPT.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you, David. Well, as we finish off this part of the podcast, do you want to maybe just tell people where they should go to learn more about the services that Halborn provides? Maybe they're a bit interested in what you guys are offering. Just make the case for what you do offer and where they should go.
Yeah, absolutely. To check out our services, just go to halborn.com. That's HALBORN.com. And then you'll have links to all of our socials on Twitter, YouTube, etc. And then on a personal note, if anybody likes to have conversations, I'm always happy to talk to anybody. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, David Schwed, SCHWED. I'm always open to having conversations with people either looking to get into the space. They have questions on, how do they embark on their Web3 journey? It's a very collaborative community. So I'm happy to jump on the phone with anybody and, shepherd them through this exciting new world.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Let's go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run David through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 moment.
Look, we'd all like to say we're pro traders, but the reality is we're probably not. But with BitGet, you don't have to be. Why? Because BitGet is the world's largest copy trading exchange. Instead of you muddling through it on your own, feel confident. BitGet allows you to automatically copy trade from over 80,000 elite traders with 24/7 support on our secure copy trading platform. Start following expert traders on bitget.com. Check for details in the show notes and join BitGet today.
All right, we are back and I'm with David Schwed. David is the COO at Halborn, providing elite blockchain security solutions. David, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it, David. I'm just going to run some questions at you. Just want kind of honest hot take style answers. No right or wrong way to do it. Question 1 for you. David, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I am more of an ETH maxi.
Fair enough. All right. Well, David, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That's a good question. I think that we're going to see a consolidation of chains in the future. I think, right now, I think it's great for people to build in all these new layer ones, but I think there needs to be interoperability between the chains. And I think we're going to see a consolidation in the future. And, there might be maybe 3 or 4 top chain winners, but I think we're definitely going to see a consolidation.
Sure. You talked before about being pro-regulation, David, and look, I'm not sure if you're an American. I'm just going to assume you are. But does it concern you at all that we see the likes of Gary Gensler at the SEC in recent days? He just won't commit to whether ETH is or isn't security. In the past, he's kind of hinted that all tokens are securities, perhaps except for Bitcoin. Elizabeth Warren, very, very anti-crypto. There seems to be a ramping up of anti-crypto sentiment from the US regulators at the moment. Is that concerning?
It is and it isn't. It's concerning only because the U.S. can't stop crypto. So if the U.S. doesn't embrace it and regulate it, it's just going to move off. It's going to move offshores elsewhere. So I think and I am an American, obviously. You hit the nail on the head. So I think I do think that we need to regulate it, and I think we need to do it quickly. And I think a lot of the stances coming from the U.S. regulators is really out of the fear of the unknown. One wrong decision could lead to, in their minds, potentially, huge adverse effects. So I think they personally need a lot of education on it, and the community is happy to educate them. I've had many, closed door conversations with a lot of the 3-letter agencies and, other government agencies about how crypto works and my personal feelings on it. And I think more and more of that needs to happen. So, I'm pro-regulation. I'm bullish on it. There are a lot of things, happening behind closed doors. Whether or not, Gensler, remains in his seat or not. I think over the last few days, I've seen a lot of calls for ouster for him. And I do know that, on the SEC, there are some friendly, crypto voices on there. So I am hopeful that we will get to a place where we will be crypto friendly.
Yeah, I hope so too. Just speaking of 3-letter agencies and so on, have you seen? I don't know if you're on Twitter. Have you seen? There's a guy called Jason Lowry. He is part of the US Space Force, I believe. But he wrote a thesis called Soft War, which is a novel theory on power projection and the national strategic significance of Bitcoin. And it kind of makes the case as for why for an Americans' national security interest, they should really be ramping up Bitcoin mining. And have you seen that at all?
No, I have not, but I will absolutely check it out after the cut. It sounds fascinating.
Yeah. All right. Well, listeners, look that up. It's called Soft War by Major Jason P. Lowry. All right. Well, let's keep it moving. Bill Gates famously said, David, that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Zoom out, whatever you like, ETH, blockchain, Web3. What does it look like in 10 years' time?
Wow. I mean, 10 years, I could not even fathom what this looks like in 10 years. But, it's interesting, back to a comment that was made at a panel that, was at a conference. And, and it was a partner, I think it was at Sequoia. I forget her name. I wish I can attribute it to it because I always talk about it. And it was a very fascinating comment that she made. And she said, imagine somebody back when the internet first came out, back, not when the internet first came out, but it really, became popular, I guess the early 90s or mid 90s. And someone said, hey, what are we using this new technology for? Figure it out now. I want to know. And then start criticizing all of the use cases for it. And imagine somebody back then saying, hey, we're going to use this amazing new technology and we're going to rent out people's houses, Airbnb, and we're going to call strangers from these little phones and we're going to get in their car and they're going to drive us places. I mean, if you thought about that back in the 90s, you would be, a loony and you'd be, thrown away. So I think it's somewhat dangerous to even try to think about what the technology is, because I think it will inhibit the creativity that people have. So I'm just really excited about the ability to, to be able to own your own data and have cryptographic proofs of, transactions and, being able to, through code, truly understand from a monetary perspective, like what's going on. Like, to me, those are the really core tenets that make me really excited. And then on top of that, building on top of those kind of, core thesis.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. I mean, if you said to someone in the mid-90s, even the late 90s, even the early 2000s, that we would be trading digital pictures of apes and they could be worth millions of dollars, or that we would have an AI that you could ask to write a short story or a poem about anything you like, and it can do so, that is literally magic. And and of course, because we live in a kind of S-curve technology world, in another 10 years, the change will just be even greater. And I think that's the kind of the one thing that people don't understand, is that the exponential change that we have experienced in the last 20 years, it just speeds up, doesn't it?
Exactly. Agreed.
All right. And I guess with that in mind, William Gibson, sci-fi author, he said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I mean, we've just been discussing this, but can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI and ChatGPT, I think, people are not really understanding the potential use cases for this and are, using it to, to your point, write a little song or write a little poem. Like I see people using like cute use cases for it, but it's a really useful business tool. And as it starts ingesting and learning and growing, it's not, people are scared of it, and you shouldn't be. I use it, right? Like I'm doing a presentation, a keynote, I think in not this week, the following week at a summit. And, I used it to help me write it. I didn't say, write me a presentation and then a poof pops out and I threw it on the thing. I'm giving it different prompts. I'm reiterating, I'm feeding it my own ideas and, asking it to, change it around. And it helps me. It helps me as an individual think about things in a different way, how to aggregate data in a different way. It's just a tool that helps us as individuals, accomplish more. So I think AI, ChatGPT, or Google Bard, I think that really is the future. And I think it's really going to help us be more productive. Imagine a world where I can have this artificial intelligence that learns from me, learns how I react to things, and learns how I think about things, and help me prioritize my day. Maybe have suggested replies to my emails based on it knows my contacts. Now, again, people are fearful that people are just going to, go to sleep and hit a button and AI is going to take over. That's not the case. It's really to help and augment that will allow us as individuals to accomplish more, not necessarily replace and allow us to become lazy. Some people are afraid AI is going to make us lazy. I think the opposite. ChatGPT and all these AI learning languages is actually helping me accomplish more.
I love it. All right, let's finish this off, David. Finally, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I have two, so I hope I can get two.
Yep.
One is I am a gigantic Doctor Who fan,
Nice.
and I also love The Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
Oh, fantastic choices. Yeah, some absolute classics there. From the past, really, but yeah, brilliant. I love it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, David. Really enjoyed talking to you today. Again, tell the people where they can find you on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever else you like to hang out. And again, where they should go for Halborn.
Sure. Halborn.com for all of our socials. And, on a personal level, David Schwed, SCHWED on LinkedIn. And on Twitter, I'm at DSchwed.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. One final question I was going to ask you is, what keeps you up at night? As a security professional or just a technologist in general, what keeps you up at night?
I think what keeps me up at night, honestly, is, just a lack of education. And I think there's somewhat of a, inability, not inability, but I think there's a reliance on technology and a reliance on tools that I've seen, unfortunately, in technology. Like I grew up in a technology where like I had to understand how computers work and IRQ conflicts and config.sys and autoexec.bat and like really truly understand how the operating system was running. And I think like as computers become, more and more reliant, and there's more and more tools to do the security work for us, and we do more and more automation, it's not a bad thing, but we need to understand what those tools are actually doing. And I think that there's a lack of education and a lot of basic understanding of how technology works. And if you don't understand how technology works, you can't necessarily secure it. So what keeps me up at night is the lack of education of cybersecurity today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. All the best and bye for now.
Thank you very much.
All right, there you go. That was David Schwed from Halborn. Yeah, interesting, eh? Certainly interesting times. AI, I don't know. Interesting times. Do check out halborn.com if you're, a Web 2 or Web 3 business enterprise startup in need of some blockchain security solutions. Hope you got something out of today's show. I certainly did. All right. That's another episode, team. Thanks for listening. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you.